here alongside Nick, running back the show. This time we're recording in advance, so no chat option. But today, looking ahead at this Tuesday night slate, we picked 5 of the highest quality games of the slate, and we're just gonna break them down like we always do on the show. Heading right into an SEC showdown, which some people might be surprised that Kentucky's an underdog based on the excitement and energy they've gotten, but like we're still in conference play. We're not in March Madness yet. We're not on these neutrals yet, and you still have to go to this Mississippi State. Go play a team that plays at a slower pace, that defends, that has been a tough out at home. Are you surprised by this line? You said in the time that I made this graphic, you said it already moved to 3.5, right?
Yeah. Pre-show, I did mention they moved to 3.5 with some vig at -115. I'd be honestly pretty surprised if we saw a 4. I didn't think it would get steamed this much, especially overnight. But I mean, it makes sense. It's a really tough spot for Kentucky. It's a quick turnaround on the road. We already saw what happened last time. They won a big game at Auburn, and they fell flat versus LSU. And Mississippi State's a much better team than LSU is, especially at home in a revenge game. When I think about a tough team, a tough coach, that's Chris Jans, and that's Mississippi State. In my opinion, they're 11th best in defense in the country. And on the other hand, Kentucky on the road in SEC play is just 6 overall in effective field goal percent and adjusted efficiency offensively. So, I definitely think that those two numbers, go towards an under, and that helps out Mississippi State, what they want to play because, they're not an offensive juggernaut team. They can't outscore Kentucky. They have to stop them for sure. I went back and looked when they first played, first matchup. Mississippi State had 22 assists, only 9 turnovers, and that's huge for them because Mississippi State is dead last in the SEC, which is obviously concerning in turnover percent at 14th. But this is the matchup we won because Kentucky only forces them at the 12th percent in the SEC play. So, they're not really like guarding you and pressuring you. So I think Mississippi State can settle in. The biggest thing I saw in game 1 when I looked back at it was Kentucky made 23 foul shots to Mississippi State's 6. I don't really think that's going to be the case again at home. So I do think that Mississippi State grinds them out. I think they've only lost 1 game all season at home, so they have a really good home court. And just again, this is a young Kentucky team on the road, quick bounce around. I like to see them long term, but this is a tough spot. So I'll ride with Mississippi State minus. I locked it in earlier, -1.5 at 1.5 units. At 3.5, I probably play for units though.
Yeah, well, congrats once again on getting some good CLV there. So Mississippi State lost to Alabama at home. That's their one SEC loss. They did somehow lose to Southern at home back on December 3rd, which was crazy. Crazy seeing that. But yeah, you told the story of what Mississippi State is and what they want to do with pace and with defense. And yes, you have the revenge aspect. A couple things from that game against Kentucky. Tolu Smith had 26, 11 of 15 from 2. So Kentucky's front court, we've talked about how those pieces are moving around a bit, but that still is where they are most vulnerable, even though Onyenso shows flashes of rim protection. Like it's still a team where points in the paint, I feel like is how you can kind of get Kentucky. Also, Josh Hubbard was not really a thing yet when they played. He played 19 minutes and scored 3 points in that game. Well, he actually was 1 of 9 from 3, so he had a bad game. He was still chucking it in his minutes, but Josh Hubbard's one of the most underrated freshmen in the country. Dude had 32 last time out against LSU, and Mississippi State is one of the most under the radar teams in the country because they're not sexy. It's not a basketball brand. They've won 5 straight. They've won 2 road games by 20, which a lot of people have not gone. Like Tennessee went on the road to Missouri. They played a game there. Mississippi State beat them 75-51. Mississippi State's a really good team, man. And, winning 5 straight, now you get Kentucky at home, which is essentially punches your ticket to the dance if you win this game. Like, everything is on Mississippi State, right? I say all that. Kentucky looked amazing against Auburn. I understand Auburn, needed to come back down to earth a little bit, and they had some injuries in that game to deal with, and a lot just didn't go their way. But, Kentucky showed that they had some poise on the road there, and then they just scored 117 points against Bama. And I know Bama and their pace and the way they play, like, it is kind of a fluky number. But, they should have won that game against LSU too on the road. All this to say, Kentucky's hitting their stride too. So I think this is going to be a really high quality basketball game. What I'm interested on is like when this game was played at Rupp, it was 90-77, and like that was with Hubbard shooting 1 of 9 from 3. But at home, it's hard not to see Mississippi State like being able to get stops, and then they're not a sexy offensive team. Like you look at the numbers, horrible free throw percentage team, which speaks to just the skill level of your team. The 3-point percentage isn't really there. Hubbard and other guys are capable, but yeah, I'm just trying to figure out if Mississippi State's going to be able to slow this pace down and play it more in the half court, or if Kentucky's going to be able to speed it up. Nonetheless, I think this is going to be a really high quality game, and both teams are hitting their stride at the right time. So I definitely lean Mississippi State because of all the spot aspects that we talked about, and I know that's the side you're on, but I understand why it's not. I don't think it's just dumb money coming in on Kentucky, right? Like I think there is some value on the idea that if this is a really good team, this is a spot where they can elevate on the road and be like, oh, like Mississippi State's really good defensively. Like you already beat this team. Like you're not going to win this game, right? But it's like, no, we got better guards, we got better shot makers, and if everyone locks in defense, then they have a chance. So, let me just play devil's advocate for a second. What is the pro Kentucky argument?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about dictating the pace. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. When they lost Alabama at home, they gave up 82. You don't want to get in that type of game where, Kentucky's getting in the 80s. No way. When they beat Auburn at home, they only allowed 58 points. And I'm not saying that Kentucky's only scored 58 because that's unlikely. But if you keep them around, 65, 70, I think you're in the driver's seat here. Kentucky's been, really good. But for me, Kentucky, because of their youth and just, all the meshing pieces, spot-wise, they've been pretty spot on. We basically called out the spot at Auburn that it was going to be a good number for them. We called out the LSU hangover, and then we called out them turning up versus Bama at home. So they've been pretty spot on the last few games. So I'm just kind of riding with that spot as well. I definitely think that they have a high ceiling, higher than Mississippi State. If they're on their A game, they probably can win this game. But Mississippi State is playing really good ball. This is their peak basketball. Winning 5 in a row, revenge game, spots all that.
Yeah, definitely the Aggies. I'll be monitoring that line tomorrow. Definitely good on you to get in at 1.5 because this could get juiced to 4, right? Like that's definitely on the table.
Yeah.
Next one, we're going to the Mountain West. Nevada at CSU. Nevada won this first game by 13, 77-64 back on Jan 24. Opened at 5.5, now to 7.5. What are you thinking on this one?
Yeah, I just looked, and we're seeing some 8s pop up now,
Sheesh.
Which is really astonishing to me. Because when the line first came out, it wasn't really moving at all. It was 5.5 for a while, actually. And I kind of thought that was pretty spot on line. I made it 4.5, 5 myself. So I put them in a money line parlay at 8. I don't see a ton of value with them, but there is a rumor floating around that Keenan Blackshear's in a boot. He torched them last time they played. Him and Lucas actually went off for 48 combined on 16 for 22 shooting. So, that was the biggest thing in game one was, them being a great tandem. And then, they shot 40% from 3 to Colorado State's 26%. I definitely think those numbers even out in this matchup. So that goes in favor of Colorado State. The spot is a great spot for Colorado State. They're off back-to-back losses away from home. They're back home where they're really good at home this season. I think their only loss is to St. Mary's. I don't think they've lost in Mountain West Conference play yet. Tournament-wise, losing their last 2 games, I think they're floating towards the bubble. So they definitely need to win this game. So it's not a sleepy spot at all, anything like that. The biggest thing that I saw game one, looking back, Nevada shot 25 for 44. On top of their hot 3-point shooting, they were also 25 for 44 from 2. That's 57%. I don't think that happens again because Colorado State is number 2, or actually is number 1 at 2-point percent on offense and defense. So I think they get that straightened out, figured out. And then also offensively, they're number 2 at home offensively. So Yeah, they really catch their stride at home. I was on a last time they played Colorado, or they played Utah State. They won by 20. So they definitely can have margin. The way they play, they can have margin. At 8, I don't know how much value there is, even without Blackshear. I'd probably, make him like probably 1.5 points to the line. So I'd be careful about laying it, but definitely they did a good job, then they win the game.
So, Blackshear news aside, I got in at 5.5 earlier today, strictly because just we've had the same conversation, right? These Mountain West, this Mountain West top 6, they all open basically at 5, and they all end up at 7. So I was just like, I'm looking at this today, and I'm like, this is gonna move, and I wonder how much it would have moved without this the Blackshear stuff. But yeah, so I'm in at 5.5. I'm obviously less comfortable with 7.5, but quickly on Nevada, in the month of February, they're 7-1, and their one loss was 6-1, and their one loss was to New Mexico by 1. So
yeah,
Nevada's been playing really well. They were, in the hate of the Mountain West, Nevada, I feel like kind of becomes the forgotten team. Maybe because people have a bad taste in their mouth because they got spanked in the first 4 by Arizona State last year, and like Lucas has been around for a while, and Blackshear's good, but I don't know. Still, they seem like the more low key of these 6 Mountain West teams. But yeah, this game is really just the epitome of like we've seen this story so many times. We've seen this story of these Mountain West favorites. We've seen this story of Colorado State at home, right? Colorado State. Imagine if I told you right at the beginning of the season that a Colorado State team that was 1-7 on the road in Mountain West play was a lock for the NCAA tournament. Like, are you kidding me? Like, that's crazy. Colorado State has won 1 time away from home, but what have they done at home? They beat Utah State by 20. They beat San Diego State by 8. They beat Boise by 13. They beat New Mexico by 8. So they've covered even this line that we're calling, pretty steep against all the other good teams in the league. And now you're telling me one of Nevada's best players might not play, who was hitting some tough shots, and like he's kind of a walking matchup nightmare because he's just this big guard who has an interesting game. I'm pretty sure he's a lefty too, isn't he, Blackshear?
I believe so. Yeah. Really smooth game. He's tough.
Yeah, and Colorado State has some athletes to throw at him. Like Nikkei Clifford's pretty good, pretty athletic. Like you can put Scott on him too. But if he's not there, I look at this Nevada team that doesn't take many threes at all. They get to the line, like they're very physical. They want to, it's not the prettiest offense. Sometimes it's a little bit ISO, and it's a little bit just kind of relying on it's kind of like a Big Ten team, like in a way, this Nevada squad. So I don't know. I think this is just the home and away story we've seen all year. It's like you go into Colorado State's building and they're going to do a good enough job defensively, and they're going to do a good enough job on the glass to prevent you from getting those cheap, just kind of physical bully points and the shooting regression that comes with you playing away from your gym. Like that's on the Nevada side, and then on the Colorado State side, they run beautiful offense. They have one of the best point guards in the country. Like they're going to score. Like they've just shown you time and time again, they're going to execute offensively. So 5.5, I think is a great bet without Blackshear there. Like I'm loving that. I still think they're the side if you want to bet it tomorrow, which is today by the time you're listening to this, but definitely Colorado State.
Yeah, for sure. Like you had mentioned, just losing Blackshear, they have a 1-2 punch with him and Lucas, and then when you can really focus and hone in on Lucas, he's a total oven, what's it called, like microwave guy where they just get hot or they're really cold. That's what he is kind of. So you can just focus on him and really stop him. This game definitely has a lot of margin to it for sure.
Yeah, it's also my memory of Lucas was just what he did on that Oregon State run. Where he was mostly a shooter, but just a 3-point shooter, and he would hit some crazy shots and off the dribble, off balance and stuff. But in that game against Colorado State where he played well, he was 9 of 11 he was 7 for 11 from 2. Like so, he's had to step up, but taking away the other creator offensively, like puts a lot of pressure on him. That from what I've seen of him as a player, like I don't think he's dude enough to go beat Colorado State like as the guy, like without a Robin,
Yeah, no doubt. And I did say I put him in a money line parlay. That was before I even learned about Blackshear. So, I definitely like them to win. I think they cover, like you said, they've had a lot of margin in these home games.
Moving on, ACC, we got Pitt at Clemson. Seeing 7 too. I have 6.5 here. Thoughts on this one?
Yeah, number felt like really spot on to me. Um, did you say you already played this game?
No, I did not.
You didn't play. Okay, yeah. I think the opener was like 6.5 or so. Seen 7.5s, some eights pop up. I will say this. This was pretty crazy when I was looking into it. I haven't seen this in a while. Clemson is 10-0 straight up and 10-0 ATS their last 10 versus Pitt. So
Wow.
they've really had their number.
Even last year when Pitt was ATS monsters.
Even last year, it's crazy what they've been able to do. Even when Pitt was playing good this season, they played early, like December 3rd or early December, for one ACC game, and they beat them at Pitt. So they're both hot. Both teams are really hot right now. They're playing good ball. Pitt's 6-1 their last 7 with road wins at State and UVA. Clemson's 5-1 their last 6. So they're both playing really good basketball. Looking ahead for Pitt, they do play at Boston College this weekend. They're on the bubble, and you want to split 1-1. Obviously, you want to win at Clemson more. But also lost at Boston College hurts their resume as well. So you definitely want to split 1-1 here. So if they lose this game, which I think they will, I'll probably look to back them at Boston College in like a short number like 1 or 2. So there's that. When I looked back at when they first played, and this is what really, I had this thought before I even, looked at the last game was how do they guard PJ Hall? And I went back and looked. He was 9 for 14, and he had 22 points. So an efficient 22 at Pitt. They didn't have an answer for him. I still don't think they have an answer for him. PJ Hall is very good. I still think he's nationally underrated. Yeah. So the biggest thing I looked at also was Pitt was dead last in 2-point percent ACC play on the road and 13th overall in effective field goal percent. So I don't really trust their defense either on the road. That was my biggest thing. That's kind of like why I ended up leaning Clemson besides the fact that they're 10-0 their last 10 versus them. I think Clemson's a good parlay piece. Number-wise, yeah, I leaned Clemson, but I didn't have a lot here, honestly.
So I forgot that Clemson and Pitt played. This was like that first ACC game that was before conference. But when you look into that matchup, a couple things stand out. One, as you said, PJ Hall was really good. 2, Shiflin had 7 offensive rebounds. That's where when you look at Pitt when they're going with Hinson as a small ball 4 and when they got Federico or one of the discount Chets, I like to call them, the Diaz Grahams, like they're so thin and like our guy Afton Reed was able to knock him around. So it's like PJ and Shiflin, like if Clemson's like playing high-low and taking care of the ball, which like at home, every reason they should be, like I think they're going to be able to score the ball. Gerard played really well in that last game. He had 25 and, Clemson's been an interesting team, right? Like they won at Bama. They won at Pitt. They beat South Carolina. They beat TCU. And then they almost won at Memphis when Memphis was playing really well. And then they just went on this slide where I was very disappointed in what I saw with them because I didn't think they were doing a good job playing that high-low, like playing through PJ Hall, PJ Hall needs the ball. Like, as you're saying, he's one of the best big men in the country. Like there were just some frustrating times where he just didn't seem to be getting his shots in flow and he would get in foul trouble. But, since Jack Clark has come back, who I know is not a name that seems very relevant with Clemson, their only losses have been either by 1 point or in double overtime to Georgia Tech. So, like, Clemson has quietly been very, very good over the past, 6+ weeks. Like, there was like a period where I and some other people were like, this team might just be fraudulent. Like, what was that non-conference? But Clemson's really good. So, okay. Did you see that with my lights? I'm not bugging.
I did see that, yeah.
But, okay. The interesting thing with Pitt for this game is Jalen Lowe was not a thing yet when Pitt played Clemson. He played 9 minutes in that game, and he hadn't scored more than except for one game against a really bad team. Like he was just like not playing minutes. And now Jalen Lowe has been playing like 35 minutes a game and has been a really nice compliment to Bub Carrington as another guard who can create, complimenting what Hinson brings to the table as a shot maker. So when I look at Clemson's weakness in the games that they've lost, it's like Gerard, and even though he looks athletic, Chase Hunter, like just not being good defenders on the ball. So like I do think Pitt's guards could find some success in this one. And this is and Pitt has traveled really well this year, right? Like we forgot that because they just lost by 30 to Wake when they went there, but they won at Virginia, they won at NC State, They won at Georgia Tech. They won at Duke. They won at Louisville. Okay, that doesn't matter. But still, 5 ACC road wins is no joke, right? Not many teams are doing that. So I lean Pitt on the number or the over, because
Yeah,
I think we've talked about being critical of Pitt, of like they're a little loosey goosey and they're a little bit relying on the guards to create a bit, but like I think this is a spot where the guards can create. It's more to me like, will they be able to stop what Clemson can do on the interior? And I think
yeah.
what Clemson does playing inside out, like if they're hitting threes, like I think Clemson can definitely be the side. So I'm not going to play Pitt, but it's more of a lean towards Pitt. If I play anything, I think it would be the over, because I think both teams have a chance to really score effectively.
Yeah, no, you bring up a great point. I just looked. I 100% agree. The number feels too low here. There's 149 in the first game. I think both teams have gotten much better since then. And defensively, their numbers are not good. Pittsburgh overall in the conference 9th, and Clemson overall in conference is 8th overall in efficiency defensive wise. So yeah, I like that angle a lot too. Actually, I think we do see points here.
Cool. There's a couple other ACC games. We picked this one. We got Wake against Notre Dame, Syracuse, Virginia Tech. Maybe we'll give some quick leans at the end, but moving on to this ranked Big 12 matchup, Kansas laying 6.5. All signs, I'm pretty sure McCullough's already announced out, and it could be longer than that, which I'm disappointed because I was starting to really come around on this Kansas team. But BYU getting 6.5 here. We saw what Kansas State just did to them at home. What do you think of this spot?
Yeah, is the line still 6.5 on this one?
Probably more closer to 7.
Yeah, it is. It is 7 now. I mean, 7. I kind of like BYU. My biggest thing about BYU is the road splits are not good. We kind of learned that after this weekend on Kansas State, because we both like BYU and they got blasted. And that was a red flag. I looked back, I was like, whoa, it seems pretty bad on the road. Like they're only 2-5 on the road in Big 12 play, and they're only ones are West Virginia and UCF. So we can't respect that. Yeah. So they haven't done much on the road to prove themselves. Meanwhile, on the other hand, we know how good Allen Fieldhouse is. Kansas this year 7-0 straight up in Big 12 play. I believe this is the smallest number besides Houston when they were getting 2.5 they've laid in conference, on the opener at least. So that's saying something, even though BYU is pretty bad on the road. You had just mentioned Noah Caller, and that's a real bummer. I really like McCullough's game. I really like Kansas with him as well. You sent me a text, and you basically were buying Kansas. I was like, yeah, well, and then McCullough's out, potentially for the season. So it just absolutely sucks. But what I will say is, Furphy had 16 last game, and Timberlake had 13. So it was the best Timberlake game by far. If he can come on, I'm not saying he can replace McCullough really, but that's a big piece of addition that they need. And also back to Furphy, he did get back-to-back Ken Palm MVPs, which is very impressive, especially for a freshman on this loaded team. He's really coming onto his own, and he could be that guy down the stretch for them. I was looking into the game, into the numbers, and my biggest thing was, can BYU stop? And they're 9th defensively in effective field goal percent in Big 12, and Kansas is number 1. So I feel like Kansas kind of named their number like they did versus Texas. Ultimately, it passed this game because I kind of do like BYU on the number. But there's a lot of dynamics here. BYU's on that ground on the road, McCullough's out, this and that. So I passed this game. Fast forward, what I would like to happen this game preferably is Kansas wins big, because then we're going to get a good number on BYU at home this weekend versus Baylor. BYU versus TCU. And I'm interested in betting BYU at home for sure in that spot, laying 3 or 4. And on the flip side, we get Kansas at Baylor, laying same number, 3 or 4. I'd look to fade both. I'd look to fade Kansas next game, bet BYU next game. So preferably in this game, selfishly, I'd like to see Kansas win big.
So that sentence you said of there's just a lot going on with this game. There's a lot to figure out, with BYU's road struggles and, how are they going to guard Dickinson, and just still what is Timberlake in this, big minutes role. Here's something that I think of with this matchup. What team did Kansas beat at home and really stunt their offense a while ago? I'll give you a hint. They're not in the Big 12.
Did I say that again?
What team came into Allen Fieldhouse and struggled to run their offense that may or may not have some similar characteristics to BYU's offense?
I don't know. When you say I'm like shit, shouldn't do
UConn.
that.
UConn came in and Kansas was switching everything when UConn was looking invincible, right?
Yeah, it
And
was early
Kansas
season.
and that was Bill Self using his galaxy brain and using his versatile defense, which centers around KJ Adams, and which Kevin McCullough is an important part of. Let's not forget. That's Furphy's still coming on as a defender. Timberlake is not that caliber of a defender, but Bill Self, this is a BYU team in a style that he hasn't seen yet. That's new to the Big 12. But then we saw what he did against that UConn team, where that was like the only time I've seen that UConn offense really rattled, right? Especially like at full strength. And a lot of that comes with that switchability and that, defensive strategy that Self brings to the table. And, you see Kansas's 10th best defense on KenPom. But I'm thinking like, okay, Khalifa versus Hunter Dickinson, what a wild matchup of two really good offensive, big men who are, not very laterally quick, who are good passers, sucking each other away from the basket. Like, what does that? Well, maybe let me say Khalifa sucking Dickinson away from the basket, right? And like, will BYU be able to, get that motion and get those good shots? You look at they scored 74 points against Kansas State and shot 6 of 31 from 3. And I wasn't able to catch that game because I was at the weight game and I haven't caught up yet. But like, I'd like to see if those were good looks or not, or BYU just had a bad shooting game. But the thing with BYU is I'm like, is Kansas going to be able to just switch and just keep guys in front? And BYU comes in out and field us and they can't score and they shoot another really bad percentage from 3 because they're not great looks? Or is this a tough matchup for Kansas to guard, and can BYU really space them out? And what they are able to do when Khalifa is in there, make some things happen. But then defensively, I don't really see how BYU is going to be able to stop Kansas. Kansas without McCullough isn't as scary, but still in that gym. You saw what they just did to Texas, who's not a bad defensive team, but it's hard to go against Kansas, in this gym. But yeah, I just have a lot floating around my mind on this game, and I can't really come to terms with like what to think of it all. And I'm like, okay, different angles that pop up. I'm like, okay, maybe Kansas's team total over, or maybe BYU's first half team total under, right? Of like they come in and they're just not able to run their stuff and they're missing shots. And, maybe BYU's number for that is what, 32 and a half, 33 and a half, and like go under that. Or I don't know. So I think I want to think about this one more, but it's a very interesting matchup. It's on ESPN Plus, which is kind of annoying. But it is the one ranked matchup of the day. I want to check it out, but I don't know. Did you pick up anything I threw down there today? Any interesting things to build off of that?
Yeah, no, to go back to, because we're both kind of like, 50-50 on this game. The biggest thing for me here is KenPom has Kansas by 4. And now they're 7 without McCullough. Like, you know what I mean? Like, one of your best players is out, and the line's still, it's nowhere close to the opener at 6.5. The money still comes in on Kansas. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And I think
That's really because KenPom's not counting the injury.
Exactly. That's factored, with McCullough in there. It's really odd, and that kind of says it all. Best player out, and the line's still so far off. Like you said, though, I do agree. Getting Dickinson out of the paint with Khalifa, because Khalifa can shoot threes. He's one of the best passer bigs. Probably is the best passing big in the whole country. Dickinson outside the paint like that, really frees up so much. There's no rim protection really outside of Adams there. He should be guarding Waterman, I believe. He can also shoot threes, so there's really no rim protection at all. I think BYU can run their stuff. The total is really high, and I think it's really high for a reason here. I think both teams kind of can't stop each other. It's a really high total, but I would lean in this game going over.
On the note of Khalifa pulling Dickinson away, I tweeted this out Saturday or Friday maybe. Dylan Dessou, same thing, right? But guess what happened with Dylan Dessou? He only took, he hit 2 of his 4 threes, but he only played 24 minutes because he had 4 fouls. Because it's damn hard to guard Hunter Dickinson and not get in foul trouble, right? And if you are doubling, you're leaving Johnny Furphy and you're leaving Nick Timberlake, who, when Nick Timberlake's a functioning human being, is a really good shooter, a better shooter than McCullough is, right? But then when you talk about BYU being able to run their stuff, I'm thinking now, I'm like, if you got Furphy and Timberlake out there at the same time for 30-plus minutes, like, man, BYU can eat that. We've seen what BYU, you've talked about their road, like they haven't really beaten anyone on the road, but like they've still scored on the road. They've still been competitive on the road. Like they were up in that game against Baylor, like when Baylor was still, in I think it was their first game in the new gym or maybe their first Big 12 game in that new gym. But like, I don't know if Timberlake and Furphy are out there at the same time, BYU should be able to eat on that. And like Dickinson's got to move more. Like Dessou is more like pick and pop with Asmus, right? Khalifa, it's more like zoom action. It's more these dribble handoffs. It's passing. And I don't know. I'm pretty sure what's his name. BYU has this big 7-footer. They barely bring him in, but they bring him in.
Is it Ali Atiki?
Atiki. He's a guy that and they got Fuchs Traore, who's like one of the most unique players in college basketball. He's just a little linebacker, but he can like knock around Misi. So like maybe he can knock around Dickinson. I think BYU does have, I'm talking myself into BYU now. I think BYU has this 3 different looks they can play at the 5. Kansas is thin without McCullough. I think last game you were getting some value on what is this team like with McCullough. It's like, well, it's still Kansas at Allen Fieldhouse, right? And it's still a Texas team that's not that good, like that has a losing record in Big 12 play. But now, you look at the steam from the Ken Palm line, which is including McCullough. Now I'm starting to think if this gets up to 7.5, I'm going to definitely look at BYU.
Yeah, I'm starting to really like BYU. I just looked at it, and I was thinking because we brought up a Tiki, that's just another depth piece to this team. BYU can go legit 11 to 12 guys deep, and Kansas is nowhere close to that. They really don't have any guys you can trust at this point, except for 4 guys really. And I will say this: Furphy and Timberlake combined for 29 last game. But 17 points came from the free throw line between those two. So really only 12 points on the court. I really want to say I feel like BYU can go and win this game tomorrow. Nothing looking at their what they've done on the road this season. You can't really back that up. It's just more of a gut. I feel like BYU gets it done on the road tomorrow.
What also?
I may have BYU plus the points. I'll wait till the morning to see what the line is.
You know what this reminds me of? I think we had this conversation. We might have had this. This was before we had the show. I had this conversation with you. I had TCU to win outright against Kansas back, and they lost that game by 1. They should have won that game. Yeah. But I think we had this conversation of there's scenarios where, or maybe we had this connect. It might have been about Dalton Connect. I might be getting guys mixed up, but Dickinson could go for 28 in this game against BYU, and BYU can still win, right? That is so on the table. And that's what happened against TCU. Dickinson had 30, and TCU lost 83-82. This has that type of feel to me. And then you brought up such a good point. So the numbers make it look like Timberlake and Furphy were great, but they were 4 of 5 on 2s and 2 of 4 on 3s, and then were 15 of 19 from the line. Yep. And DeJuan Harris had 7 of 10 2s, and I only saw part of this game, so this might be wrong. But my inkling is, why did DeJuan Harris go 7 of 10 on 2s? Max Asmus was guarding him, right? And I know BYU is not a great defensive team, but and we've talked about how Harris in certain spots will be more aggressive, and this is one of them. But if you're BYU and you're going on the road, there are way more difficult situations they've had to deal with, right? Like dealing with an athletic wing scorer like a Kaluma, right? Or Tyler Perry, who's way more of an offensive mind or a scoring minded guard than a DeJuan Harris, right? If you're BYU and you go on the road and your second most scary offensive player against you is a DeJuan Harris, making plays off the bounce, that's something you can kind of live with. And, KJ Adams, he can have his games where he steps up offensively, he had 16 last game, but then again, this team got 7 points off the bench. It's the same problem they have now. It's you add Furphy, but you take away Furphy coming up, or that other guy coming off the bench.
That's exactly what I was about to say. It was imagine there being betting odds, what the spread would be on BYU bench, the outscore Kansas's bench in this game. It'd be huge, bro. It'd be like 20 points maybe. The depth could play a factor, especially if this game's up tempo. What does BYU play? What's their pace? 94th in the country, so yeah, they want to play up tempo. Second in the Big 12. I think they established their pace in this game. Yeah, I mean, the more we talk about it, the more I like BYU here. Honestly,
cool. Hey, that's cool about the show, huh? Figuring out plays in real time. And I must say, I know we had missed Georgetown. Georgetown was up 13 at half. right? DePaul
Yeah.
caught fire at the beginning of the second half, and then Georgetown started like, oh my God, we're going to lose to DePaul. I wish when you're in a bet and it slides to the point where you're like, you realize your team's not going to cover, and you're like, I hope they freaking lose, right? Like, it's like, I kind of want DePaul to win now. Like, if Georgetown's not going to get this cover.
And then they win by like 1.
Point is, I feel like our track record of when we talk through a game and kind of change our mind, we look at a game with an open mind where we're not trying to sell ourselves on the side, if that makes sense, right? Like, it's like Colorado State, Nevada. I look at that line, I'm like, Colorado State. It's like I'm not even thinking about it. It's just fully.
Yeah.
I know this line's going to move. I like Colorado State at home. I like Colorado State better than Nevada. Colorado State. That's a simple bet, right? But then there's a game like this where we're really looking at the matchup and we're really taking in a lot of different data pieces and then figuring out which data pieces we want to grab. And like, this is one where we just did that and we landed on BYU. Doesn't mean it's going to be right, but I like that was our process. You know what I'm saying?
No doubt. Yeah, we were open-minded about this one for sure. That's a good thing to do.
So we'll take that right into Texas at Texas Tech. This is our last game that we have on our board. Tech Lane 4.5, and Washington returned last game and they lost to UCF. I did have UCF there. Thank you very much for tuning into the show Saturday. You caught that, but what do you think about this line? I thought it would be a little bit more towards Texas Tech actually.
Yes. Yeah, so actually I read that Warren Washington might be out for this game now. And also, I don't know if you saw it, McMillan, their 6-man, who's really good. He can fill it up. He was out last game versus UCF. And he's out again, I believe, for this game. So not
he's
only
like my favorite player on Texas Tech.
Yeah, he's electric. I like him a lot. I think he's from Grand Canyon. Yeah, I love him there. And he's been great. He's a good spark plug off the bench. So no big, and that's a problem. No Washington. They ranked dead last in offensive rebounding in the Big 12. So Texas should really look to hit the glass this game, and they're due 3-point positive regression. And McMillan is the sniper for Texas Tech. So without him, their 3-point percent is due to go down as is. So look out for that. Texas has been interesting the last month. They've zigzagged every game. They're 3-3. They've won, lost. Ultimately going 3-3 across 6 games. So playing that trend, I'm not saying to do this, but they are, due for the win right here. Don't do that. Don't bet like that, obviously. But looking into it, that is the case here. My biggest red flag is, I watched it when they played at Texas the first game. Texas was kind of in control of that game, and then Texas Tech second half just took over the game. They pulled away. Toussaint played really well. Pop Isaacs played really well. So I look back. Tech has owned them. They've won 3 in a row at home versus them. They've won 4 of the last 5, and they've covered 5 out of the last 5. Being a dog in a few of those games. Head to head, points towards Tech, but without Washington, without McMillan, I have real concerns here, especially for a team, especially for Texas, who they need this one. They're on the bubble. The screen says 21-5, but I know they aren't 21-5.
Yeah, nope, I didn't. That's not true at all. I'm sorry, this is a bad graphic.
They're 17-10. So I don't know where they're on the bubble, but they're definitely close to there. They need this one. This is a big win, probably a Q1 win at Texas Tech. No McMillan, no Washington again. I think there's a value of Texas here getting 4.5.
Yeah, fuck. Sorry about that graphic, team. Texas is 17-10, 6-8 in the Big 12. Texas Tech is 19-8, 8-6. This is, what that is? This is the Duke Wake template I had from last show, and I slipped up on the record. So apologies there. But this game is on ESPN and it starts at 9 Eastern, and that is the line, and those are the Kemp bombs. So sorry about that. But yeah, I agree. I've been questioning Texas Tech for most of the year. It's been a team I've just I don't think I've backed them a single time. Gone against them a couple times. They looked really good in that game against Kansas at home, right? When they hit every single shot. And yes, McMillan is a dead eye, but so is Kerwin Walton, and sometimes Pop Isaacs is. I still don't really like Joe Toussaint. Maybe I need to change my mind that maybe that's just Iowa Joe Toussaint, and he's kind of evolved as a player. But I just think Texas has better players. And like you said, the spot is them on the road. They've won at TCU. They won at Oklahoma. They won at Cincinnati. And I don't know. I just think Asmus is the best guard on the floor. And I also think this is a game where Dylan Dessou won't get in foul trouble like he did in that Kansas game, and he can score inside out in this game. Like, I think if those guys are finding success, also, what's his name? Chendall, I think is it Chendall Weaver, number 2, the guy with that super high hairline, kind of funky looking guy in Texas. Yeah, so last time these teams played, like it was more Shedrick was still starting over Dessou, and like Brock Cunningham was playing huge minutes, but like Weaver adds like a nice defensive, like he's super athletic, that guy, and he adds a nice little defensive punch, and then it's kind of just like the offense functions through. It's Asmus and Hunter are ball handlers, like you can use Dessou like as an ISO guy or in like pick and pops with that, and then Dylan Mitchell's kind of like a roller, using his athleticism in different ways. I've seen a lot of games this year where I do like Texas, and I'm like, Texas is good. Like I feel like Texas is getting slept on, but then other times, they just run into a team that I don't know. The Big 12 is really good, right? And Texas is 6-8, and they're like the one team in the league that has a legit chance to make it with that record. But no, we've seen them get up for spots, and like, it's getting to late February, and I was talking about who's on the sideline really matters, and yeah, obviously I would lean Grant McCasland over Rodney Terry, but also your point guard matters, and Asmus just scored 5 points against Kansas. He wants to get back to the tournament too. Like he's a guy I would trust. And like Texas Tech down 2 of their top probably 6 guys. Like I would have zero confidence backing Tech. I don't know if I'm going to play Texas, but I would not be surprised at all if they win this outright. Just trusting that core 4 of Asmus, Hunter, 2 Hunter. Wait, yes, Dylan and Tyree is both Hunter, right? Did I just get tripped up?
Tyrese Hunter.
Dylan Mitchell. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I just think their 4 best players are better than Texas Tech's 4 best players. I think Texas, in revenge, with Texas Tech down 2 guys, I definitely lean Longhorns.
Yeah, Texas is like they're like a big mystery team because they have so much talent. I think they can make a run in March. They played a weak non-con. You couldn't take much away from it. Big 12, they've been pretty much 50-50 at 6-8. So yeah, they're a big mystery team to me. The biggest thing to me with Texas is name an assistant coach who benefited more than their head coach leaving. Like Rodney Terry, inherited such a good Texas team, and he rode that wave last season. I don't know what the contract is they gave him, but I can tell you right now it probably is not worth it. Like 17-10 with this roster, like this team has a ton of talent. 1 through like 9. It's the same as like BYU versus Kansas. Like the away team has way more depth, and like Texas Tech does not have depth. Like they have it. I don't really even trust like some of their guys starting now at this point. Like the weirdest thing for me is like I thought Kyron Lindsey was gonna be pretty good for Tech coming in this season. Like he played 1 minute last game. Like he's not even getting on the court. Let me pull up. They scored 61 points last game without McMillan. They've been without Cambridge. Maybe Washington's out again. He only played 13 minutes last game. Like, they just don't – like, they're going to have to ride those starters the whole game. Like, Toussaint, Isaac Williams, Walton, and I guess Yalaho off the bench is the other biggest 6'8" freshman. I wouldn't be surprised if Texas wins this game either.
What happened last year? Was Chris Beard still the coach last year when they played at Texas Tech? Or was it Rodney Terry?
I think he coached 1 game versus Tech. That's it. No, he was – oh, wait, no, it's this year. He was for sure out the door by January 14th. I'm pretty sure his incident happened around like in December. It was pretty early on.
It's crazy how different Texas Tech doesn't have anyone from their team last year except for. Can you hear me?
Beard did last year, right?
Wait, say that again.
Beard like got out last. Was it last year, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'll make sure I'm tripping.
Texas Tech only really. Kerwin Walton's the only. I'm just in awe of how different Texas Tech looks this year than last year. It's honestly pretty remarkable that McCaslin has them as a chance to be a tournament team. I don't know. I'm just not sold on them. I've just watched them a lot. Sometimes you just got to trust vibes. Like, I just don't think they're that good. And like I understand they've had a better season than Texas. I just think Texas is a better team. And I understand it's not that simple when you're looking at a road conference game, but like I just like Texas more. I don't know if I'm going to talk myself into it. I just think Texas is better.
No one for Tech I trust, man. Like Pop Isaacs, Toussaint, they're both like front runners. Like if shots are going in at first, they'll be hot all game. If not, they're terrible. Darian Williams is pretty consistent. Kerwin Wallen, I would never trust. So I'm with you. Like I don't trust them long term at all, really.
And how many games is Dessou like? The biggest dude on the floor, and I'm pretty sure he's gonna be tomorrow, right? Washington, either he's not.
Yeah, it's gonna be Yalaho.
Washington's 7 feet tall. He does not look that tall. Am I tweaking? I didn't think Warren Washington was that big.
Nah, bro, he's tall. Like he dunks everything.
Okay,
he's big dude.
All right, that was a bad take. I'm sorry for everyone who said that.
He is lightweight. He's really skinny.
Okay. At least I'll take that consolation. But
yeah, no, bro. Even Shedrick off the bench can come in and do damage for Texas tomorrow.
Yeah,
like 100%.
I'm gonna look at that more tomorrow. All right, real quick. That's basically it, guys. Thanks for joining. Just a couple quick leans, Nick. Let's just go rapid fire. Like Houston's laying 13.5 at home against Cincinnati.
I would lean Houston.
Yeah, me too. Syracuse -1.5 at home against Virginia Tech.
I think Tech, but they've been terrible on the road, so I'd pass. That was pretty 50-50 for me.
Pass, but I'm gonna say Syracuse. They've been kind of playing a little bit better lately, and I don't really trust Virginia Tech. Wake's laying 6.5 at Notre Dame. I've said this could be a sleepy spot. I think this goes two ways. They do what they did to Georgia Tech, and they go in and win by 20. Or Notre Dame grinds its out, and Wake has to figure out a way to get it done in like the 60s. That could totally happen. So I'm a little nervous, but I'm more optimistic because we have been playing really well.
Give me Wake, man.
Wake big? Wake
big. Get Notre Dame out here. They stink.
FSU -2.5 against NC State.
Who was playing NC State?
Florida State at home. 2.5.
I'd go Florida State.
Me too. DJ Horn has been playing out of his mind lately, though.
Yeah,
DJ Horn is nasty.
That game is like asking for some like nonsense, I feel like.
All right, let's go to the world of Peacock real quick. Wisconsin laying 4.5 at Assembly Hall.
Indiana's been brutal, man. But this is where they do something, I think.
That's what we said That's what we said against Nebraska,
bro. Hey, two good home spots. They got blown out, and then they go on Penn State and lose by like 9. Man, they're done. They're terrible. I don't know what Woody's doing, but give me him tomorrow. I don't know why. Pure gut. No idea why.
Dude, if Indiana would have grabbed Northwestern or Nebraska at home, I would like Wisconsin a lot here. It's just uncomfortable because they didn't get either of those, right? And because what is Wisconsin? I understand AJ Storr, Chucky Hepburn, Max Clemson, blah, blah, blah. Wisconsin's a front court focused team, and so is Indiana. And like,
yeah, they match up. Wisconsin matches up great across the board with Wall and Crawl. Like, they match up great.
God, I hate that.
That game's tough.
I'm not turning that. It's on Peacock. I'm not turning that on. I'm not turning that on.
We're watching that.
Penn State at Iowa. You said you took Iowa in a money line parlay. I think Mike Rhodes has done a nice job this year for sure.
He has.
8 and 9 in the Big Ten is pretty impressive.
Yeah, the biggest thing was in this game is Iowa does not turn over the ball, and that's what Penn State wants to do. Penn State's off back-to-back home, big wins. Indiana and obviously Illinois was huge. I think they go on the road. I think they get humbled here, revenge spot. I think Iowa covers this game, honestly.
Yeah. I also wouldn't be surprised if Ace Baldwin just cooks.
Hey, respect. I love Ace Baldwin. He's a baller. Like, he's a hooper. Like, he's a dude you can trust. Like, he will probably play really well tomorrow. The rest of the cast, yeah.
We're not talking about these sicko Mountain West games. Like, also, like, quick Mountain Westing. Like, congrats. Like, you're going to get 6 teams in, but, like, come on.
I don't know.
Like, Wyoming is 13-14. Fresno's 11-16. Air Force is 9-17. San Jose State's 9-19. Like, some bad teams. But I guess that's what you kind of need right? In today's net societies, you need your teams who suck. You need your teams that are really good because the teams in the middle, all they do is just mess things up.
You've seen like, and I like the Mountain West, but you've seen like what those teams have done in the tournament the past few years. San Diego State, their run last year Final Four carries like so much weight because before then they've been horrible. I think the year prior, like every team lost in the first round out of the Mountain West.
You're right. They did. And I guarantee you, whatever 7 seed is playing Boise State in the 7-10 game, we're bringing hammer time down on the 7 seed.
Gotta see the matchup first. But
Arkansas,
I do agree with that.
This one's gross. Arkansas 9.5 against Vanderbilt. Obviously, lean Arkansas there. The most underrated story of the weekend is our friend Mr. Caleb Battle went for 42 in the win over Missouri when he had a healthy scratch and he had 5 games where he didn't even play 10 minutes, and then he's had other games where he's taken 15 shots. So what a mess of a season in Arkansas. But they've won 2 in a row against bad. They beat A&M. I was about to say 2 in a row against bad teams. A&M kind of is bad, but against Vanderbilt, I think they should be able to out talent themselves and play an up and down game and get to 85 points.
Yeah, dare I say Arkansas is back? No, I'm not saying that, but they should win this game. Hey, did you see what Stackhouse said? I mean, this was a joke of a quote. Did you see what he said at the end of the game?
That we started to figure something out or something. What was it?
He was like, "Yeah, we figured it out. Like, we need to press these guys when we play the next game."
When they press the walk-ons.
They pressed the walk-ons. They went on a 7-0 run. Congratulations, you still lost.
Yeah, and they hurt Florida's net ranking, which in turn hurts Wake's net ranking.
Yeah, it's crazy how that happens, man. Yeah, they play Florida last game of the year at home. They're gonna be like 12-point underdogs. I hope they press them. Florida will destroy them. Hopefully that's Bulletin too.
LSU laying 3.5 at home against Georgia, who's really fallen off. Georgia was looking like they were a bubble team for a second, but LSU's played pretty well lately, right? Except for they just got rinsed by Mississippi State.
Yeah. God, it sucks to see what happened to Georgia. The turning point really was they had Tennessee on the ropes at home. They blew the game. And ever since then, they've just been sliding. I mean, it sucks.
They were 12-3. They were 12-3, and they were up double
late.
Digits on Tennessee.
They're up late.
Oh my God!
They were up 75-64 with 6 minutes left, and they lost the game. That flipped their whole season around. Yeah, I probably bet LSU tomorrow. I want to bet that game though.
Dude, they won 10 games in a row before that.
Dude, it sucks. I was really high on Georgia. They were like playing really good, and I watched that game live, and I was like, "Wow, that just killed them," and it smoked them.
And then they had that overtime loss to Florida where they came all the way back. Yeah. They scored 30 points in the last 10 minutes of regulation, and then 7 in a row, and then you go beat Vanderbilt, and then Auburn comes in and beats you by 21 on Saturday. As an underrated Auburn performance. Chad Baker-Mazar at 25. Jeez. I think that's everything. Any mid-major games on your radar? I think there was one A10 game, right? It was Loyola St. Bonnie's.
Yeah, Loyola's been rolling. They've won like 6 or 7 in a row. But Bonaventure has a legit home court, and they get the whistle there a lot. Like, I'm not biased or anything on any of that. But they get a whistle there. It's a hard place to play. I think they stopped their streak. I think Bonnie's get the win. They're laying 3. I'd lay it with them. Real quick, other A10 news. Shout out to UMass. They're going to the MAC.
Dude.
Imagine
Frank. Is this for football reasons?
Yeah, it's definitely football. It sucks to see that, but it is what it is.
I saw Mr. Hotballs on Twitter. He's a great follow. He's a big UConn fan. Leads some of the late night Twitter spaces. Says that the Matt Cross to UConn hype train just went from 0 to 100 real quick.
I think Matt Cross fits in identically, perfectly.
He's been playing really well this year. I heard some talk of him being just a bad locker room guy at the ACC schools he was at. I don't know how much validity there was to that.
Yeah, but when he was at Louisville, though, that was a complete shit show year. I can't blame him. I'd be a bad locker room guy that year too. It was a mess. Oh, another UConn guy, Danny. If you haven't watched him, when the Ivy League tournament starts, you gotta watch this guy. His name's Danny Wolf, 7-footer from Yale. He's tough, bro. I was talking to somebody about it, and they were like, "Yeah, well, defensively he kind of stinks, but trust me, every high major should want this guy next year."
Interesting.
I think he might go to UConn too. There's rumors there.
Interesting. All right, well, that'll do it for the Tuesday show. Hopefully you guys like this pre-recorded version. We'll definitely see you guys Saturday. We're gonna have a special guest too, which is gonna be pretty exciting. And yeah, make sure you're plugged into our Twitters at TurnstoneCapper. That's Nick Greeley. I'm Christian Odjakjian, OdjHoops, and we'll see you guys next time.
Yes, sir.